Oh, welcome to another Harris-Elmore and Genoa Libraries podcast with me, Ariel and Sierra.
Hello.
Hello.
Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I should have asked, can you hear me okay? With my mic just dangling off of my earbuds here.
I can still hear you, so I'm okay with that.
Okay. And hopefully, I was just telling Ariel, I'm in a different room in the library, so acoustics should be better. I know I'm usually tinny and echoey sounding, which annoys me too, so I apologize. Hopefully this is better.
I just like that it's a little bit colorful because I just kind of always stay in the mute community room that we have. But I like you have all the different colors.
It is. All the books behind me are real colorful and everything.
I love it.
I turned off we have like a dehumidifier in the room, and I turned that off because I'm like, that is going to be an annoying noise if I don't turn that off.
That's funny. Maybe I could make a background or something and like hang some things up so it'll be like, ooh, where's Ariel? Ooh.
That'd be pretty. You can change your background too, just virtually.
Yeah, I always do that, and then I always think it looks weird, and then I'm like, I'll just leave it the way it is.
It never looks real, I know. That's why I don't do those very often, because like they just don't look real. They just look weird.
Or like those that have been on Zoom before, like it'll have the slightest outer edge around like either your hair or your shoulders, and then it's like, I can tell you're really not there. Like you're in the ocean. Lies.
No.
100% lies.
Right. I wish I could believe you were just sitting in the ocean with your laptop, but I don't.
You can't breathe underwater. Oh.
I try that all the time. I try to slurp my water and see if I can breathe it, and I can't. I just choke all the time.
Yeah.
Don't do that. I try it so you don't have to.
Yeah, don't do it. I used to, when I would go to like the community pool growing up, try to hold my breath, see how long.
Oh, God,
but that's about the extent. I wasn't very good at it.
No.
It's all right. I have better activities, I guess, than trying to see if I could breathe underwater. I mean, I don't know, hold your breath. Like, I wasn't the best swimmer anyway.
I used to like swimming a lot when I was younger. We'd have goggles. We'd go diving underwater. We had those really fun rings where like you drop them and then try to dive after them because they were heavy and they'd sit on the bottom. That was fun. I don't like swimming anymore. I don't know why.
I do it sometimes, but it's not the same.
No. And like, I would only ever do it in a pool. Like, I could never go actually swimming in like the ocean or something. I'm afraid. Right. I don't like large bodies of water. They freak me out so bad.
I mean, I've been in the lake before. I've been in like Maumee River before. It's funny to me because growing up, like, yes, we had water shoes, and then for some reason I stopped using them, and like it just was common practice like not to use water shoes. Probably because I just didn't like having to wear them and they felt weird in the water.
Yeah.
And then like I've been in the Maumee, that's kind of gross. In the lake, that's also can be somewhat gross.
Yeah.
And I went to this lake in Michigan, and it was really clear. You could see all the way to the bottom. You could see the snails. Immediately freaked out, and I was like, oh my God, I don't want to get in the water. I can see what is in this
snails.
body. No thank you. Luckily, I was able to get some old shoes on, and I could get in the water that way, but it really freaked me out. And now I'm like, what am I stepping on that I can't even see? Like,
right?
Now I want to buy a pair of water shoes because it really freaked me out.
I know, it's so bad about the water around here is you can't see what's in it. But if you could, you wouldn't want to.
I highly advise don't look for it. Don't do it.
Like several years ago, my dad, my sister, and I went to Florida. I'm sure I've talked about that before. And the fact that like my sister and I did go into the ocean, I went up to my waist and started panicking. It was just too much water around me, and I started like just freaking out. And she went all the way up to her shoulders. So she was just a head sticking out of the water. And then I started seeing things, and like it wasn't clear water. You couldn't see the bottom. So I couldn't see the rest of my body. But I started seeing like little creatures, and what I am like positive was like those little tiny clear jellyfish real close to me. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm out. I'm not getting stung today. I'm not stepping on nothing. Like I was done. I'm like, okay, I've touched the ocean. I'm good.
I don't blame you at all because like I know I've been in Lake Erie and there's fish that just like swim around and they get up against you and it's like, oh my God, what was that?
Right?
Like,
I don't
want to fish. It's okay. There's no piranhas in the lake. but it freaks you out still.
Yes. We used to do this
Uh,
thing. My older sister and I so it was my younger sister and I that went to Florida, but my older sister and I used to go camping with my aunt and uncle in
Oh,
Pokagon,
fun.
Indiana. And there's Lake James over there. And to get to it from the campsite, you have to go down this like really long, winding set of stairs. It's just concrete steps. So there's like 200 or more steps that lead from the
Holy
campsite
moly.
down to the beach. So you have to walk all the way down there, and like halfway down is like a wash station. So when you're coming up from the beach and you're covered in sand, you can wash before you get back to the
Nice.
campsite. So we used to go there all the time. My uncle claims, and I have to agree, if you've ever been, you'd probably agree with me too, it is the wettest water in the world.
When you say wettest, do you mean like slippery?
It's the wettest water. It's wetter than all other waters.
What does that mean? How can one water be wetter than the other?
Exactly. It's amazing. If you don't believe me, you'll have to go to Pokagon and go swimming in Lake James. It's the wettest water ever. But we used to do this thing where like people go swimming and they drop stuff. So when we were kids, we were a lot younger. We were probably 8 and 10 maybe. We couldn't reach the bottom, so we'd stay in the shallower end. But my uncle liked to hunt for like all the little treasures people drop and everything. So he'd put goggles on, and then we would climb up on his back. So he'd be face down in the water, and we would weigh him down so he could see what was on the floor of the lake. And then he'd pick up sunglasses, money, bracelets, like all that kind of stuff.
Oh my gosh. And he could see all that? It was clean body of water?
It wasn't too bad in the shallower end. It was kind of a dirty color, but like because he was underwater, he could see it.
You could see it better.
My uncle also has insanely good eyesight. Like he can see things for miles away and be like, oh, do you see that fly? It's like 5 miles from here, but I can see it. And
it's
like
there.
Nobody else can see it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
If you get out binoculars, you're like, oh yeah, I do see the fly. But he can just see it with his bare eyes. I kid you not.
That's
he
crazy.
has amazing eyesight.
Does he have glasses? Does he have to use glasses?
He has reading glasses. He can't read anything up close. But he can see 20 miles away, no problem at all.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's cool, but it's also crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of crazy about what we're going to talk about today, actually.
Good. Sliding right into it. I like it. Go ahead.
So
it has nothing to do with lakes or water.
No. I mean, one sort of does, but not really the overall picture here.
Right.
So way back when, we were thinking about things to do for the podcast, and I thought this would be a fun idea. I don't know if people that are watching or listening have ever heard of this. This was like a concept that was new to me that I learned about in high school when I was a freshman. The English teacher also taught senior English. And so you do a project on Disneyfication. So what that is, it's like when, Walt Disney did all these great fun things with Cinderella, the Little Mermaid, Snow White, all those good ones, then it's not quite what it appears. Not quite what it is to appear. Oh,
I'll block your body with my body if you don't want to be on the camera.
And not what we know Disney to be. It's actually fairly dark. So he took a lot of his stuff from the Grimm fairy tales, which were very dark. It was trying to teach people certain habits way back when, like in the early 1800s, middle 1800s. So we thought it'd be cool to talk about Disney and the Disneyfication process of original fairy tales, and then vice versa of how it was when Disney made his films and animation. So we thought it'd be pretty cool because honestly, a lot of these, we're only going to do a few today.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many and they're so off the wall. Like one we're not going to talk about today, but I'm going to mention briefly because it still mind boggles me, is Cinderella.
Yes.
Which the whole story of Cinderella mind boggles me because the man couldn't remember what the lady looked like. But that's besides the point. That's way back over there.
Well, you're talking, I want to look that up just to clarify because I don't remember. It doesn't make any sense why he can't remember her at all. I feel like maybe she wore a mask or something, but that wouldn't negate the fact that she would sound the same or have the same hair color and stuff.
Well, that's just it. Like she would have the same like face structure. I don't know, maybe she painted her nails. Maybe that's the problem. Way back
I don't
when.
know. You just can't tell the difference between someone wearing a pretty dress and someone
Right.
wearing
So
work
like in
clothes.
Cinderella, it's pretty much this. I'm going to give you the quick debriefing of it for everyone at home. Yes, she goes to the ball, she meets the prince, they have a great time, she loses her slipper, and so then it comes down to the part of the story where people are trying on the glass slipper. Oh my gosh, they go door to door, they can't find the mysterious lady of the night until they go to the residency of Cinderella and the stepsisters, of course. And so they try to get their foot into the shoe. As we all know, it doesn't fit because it's not for them. But in order to make it fit, they did not only shove their foot in the glass slipper, they then proceeded to cut off their heel to fit in the shoe.
And see, that was the
And
only reason the prince realized it wasn't the right girl, because they started riding off on their horses, and he looked over, or one of the footmen like came over to the prince like, hey, this lady's bleeding all over the place. And they're like, oh, she's not the right person. The shoe doesn't fit her. Yeah. Gross.
Yeah, and then just imagine being like Cinderella, like trying on the shoe after it had all that blood in it. Like, oh, gross.
I know,
I hope they
right?
cleaned it.
I hate it. It's horrible.
Yeah, it's gross. So gross.
I don't really understand. Sorry, I'm trying to like quick read and I can't quick read. Because
Yeah,
it
so
just
we were
says that
trying.
like she had a beautiful gown and pair of slippers. So sorry, her face would have looked the same. It wasn't hidden or anything.
I don't know. In
I
true
wonder if maybe it was
fashion.
part of the spell or something, but
Oh, but oh, that's a fair point. I didn't think of that. I just think it's more so the guy was like, wow, she's hot, or like she
yeah.
looks like she has money. Like that'd be great for the kingdom. Like there's so many routes it could go.
See, that's one of the things too, is like the Grimm's fairy tales, they were interesting people. Like all of their stories had very dark notations
Very.
on like undertones and things. And I feel like that had something to do with like the original lore, or like they weren't the original storytellers. This was their retelling of like ancient fairy tales from different places and different times around the world, right? So they were so dark. And then some of the stuff, like even in one of that we're going to talk about later. Wow, my mouth just did crazy things there. My brain's thinking too fast.
It's just so mind bending.
It's the weird stuff that happens, and I'm like, did you think this was like, what if this was a cool thing that could happen? Or it's so dark, you're like, you would never want that to happen. Or it's just in the story where the sisters are like, I'll cut my foot off to make it fit into a shoe. Sure, I want to get married, and like they would have been in severe pain. Like normal people wouldn't be able to handle the pain of just cutting off their toes to fit into a shoe just to get married. It gets crazy to me how the characters in the stories are so nonchalant about some of the stuff that happens.
Yeah, maybe we're thinking about it too much. Maybe it's purely a sale tactic. Like they wanted people to buy it because it was so outrageous.
I don't know, maybe.
Or they were just desperate. I mean, I guess if you're desperate, you'll probably do whatever you have to.
See, that's why I wonder a little bit about why Disney liked the stories enough to be like, I want to make this story, but I have to make it pretty because they're so dark. How did he look at some of these dark fairy tales and be like, this would make a great movie for kids? When did that happen?
I'm sure there's like a whole bunch of, that's something I did not prep for. But I'm sure there's plenty of like articles and videos about it, about how we like the, I guess you could say the bones of the story, and then making it all like fruity. I don't want to say fruity tooty, but like creative and imaginative and like fun for kids that way. Cause I'm sure he knows he could pull children in and get mom and dad to go to the movie theaters or go to the parks and the happiest place on earth.
So honestly, I can understand that to a degree of another sort. So this is unrelated to the topic, but I feel like it kind of fits because in a way, I believe Beauty and the Beast was partially based off of Phantom of the Opera, or vice versa. They go kind of hand in hand storyline wise. And Phantom of the Opera happens to be like my favorite book of all time. Like I read it constantly. I love it. But if you watch the movie that was made, or any of the plays that were made, even though the stage plays are very beautiful and I like them, it's very different from the book, and it's very different from where you meet the Phantom, whose real name is Eric, and learning his backstory and what he actually looked like. And there's so much more to his character than just his obsession with Christine and kidnapping her and all of that. Like there's so much more to it that you don't see. So I think the play kind of, even the movie, it kind of makes it prettier than what the book really shows. Like it's so much darker, and there's so much pain that he went through as a child, and like just his growing up life and his love for Christine that you get in the book, and you don't get that in the movie. They don't portray that part of it. And I think Disney is the same way. Like they lost a lot of the original story when they turned it into pretty little fairy tale cartoons for kids.
Oh, 100%. Which the first one that we're going to talk about, which I'll let you read it first because I know this one's your favorite, but like when I first read it for the first time, because this is one I wasn't familiar with, it's just so different from what you hear about or you see, and you're just like, oh my God, like this is it's so bananas to me, but it's like kind of fun to see it, but it's also like, oh, like we talked about, like, how did you think about that? Like, that's so bizarre.
And this is the exact story I was thinking about earlier when I said this, where I'm just like, some of the weird stuff that happens in this, where you're just like, what? How did you come up with that in your mind? So yeah, I think that is probably one of the reasons why Rapunzel happens to me one of my favorite weird fairy tale stories.
I'm going to let you start reading. So if you want me to like start reading later on, you just let me know if you need to swap out.
Okay. I'm going to take a drink of water. Slurp, slurp, slurp.
Same. Getting ready. It's a long story. Sierra prepped it, let me tell you.
I had a little bit typed out earlier in the week, and then last night I was typing frantically trying to get this all done in preparation for today. It's so great that we waited to the last minute.
It does happen,
That is how I do half the scripts, where we're like, we're recording next week. I'm like, cool. And then I wait until 2 days before we record to type out the script.
Yes. Now to be fair, when we are recording this is right before summer reading. So there's a lot going on.
Yep. And we can talk about that later if y'all are interested. It starts soon. Or it started a while ago, depending on when you listen to this.
We'll definitely talk about it at the end of the podcast for sure.
Oh, yeah. So I'm going to get into this. I'm going to try to read not too fast, but faster. It is kind of long. But Rapunzel, there's so much to it that almost none of it is like what you see in movies. Almost none of it.
I can't wait. I know.
So the story starts out, a lonely couple longs for a child. And when the wife is, pregnant, when she finally gets pregnant, she's in her house and she sees Rapunzel in her neighbor's yard. And Rapunzel can mean two things. It can either be an edible salad green or a root vegetable. And the story doesn't clarify which one it is. I think because, well, I'll tell you later. It says later that she makes a salad out of it, so I think it was probably more of like a green leafy thing. That's all I was going to say. But the garden, who was their neighbor, that it was a sorceress. So they lived next to a sorceress.
You think you'd give a warning, like to your child, like, don't go over there, it's a sorceress, don't upset her. She might curse you or something. Like, she could bless you or she could curse you.
It just feels weird that, like, you look into your neighbor's garden, your neighbor's a sorceress, and the woman who is having pregnancy cravings wants the plant. She wants Rapunzel, which is in her neighbor's yard. I don't know why she didn't just ask her neighbor for it, but she wants the plant so bad, she refuses to eat anything else, and she begins to waste away. So her husband fears for her life and decides to break into the garden one night and steal some of the plants. Again, I don't know why you didn't just ask the neighbor. Maybe they knew she wasn't nice.
Yeah, she could be cool.
I know, just ask. So yeah, he steals her some plants. His wife makes a salad. That's why I was saying I think it's more of a salad green instead of a root
I'd
vegetable.
agree.
But she's not satisfied and she begs for more. I would be kind of pissed if I was the husband. Like, dude, I just broke into a sorcerer's
Honestly.
yard to steal you some and you're not happy? Whatever. So, anyways, her husband once again climbs the wall to the sorcerer's garden, except this time he gets caught. And the sorceress accuses him of theft, which he's guilty of. But he pleads for mercy and she gives in on one condition. When his child is born, he was to give it to her. He was scared for his life, so he agrees that once his child is born, he'd give it to the sorceress. I don't know how anybody could do that. Like, it's your child. You wanted a child forever, and you got caught for stealing some lettuce, and now you just gave up your child because of this lettuce instead of just being punished.
You literally could have even, there's a couple of options here. You could have asked for the salad. You could have paid for the salad. Like, or I don't know, can you give us a portion of the plant that we could start growing it for ourselves? Like, literally, there were a few options I could have chosen.
Or like, what would she do to him? What would the punishment have been? He didn't ask for options, just I'll be lenient on you and not punish you if you just give me your child. And he's like, yes, I don't want to be punished. Just take the kid. Just
maybe they thought
they would
get to see her. Maybe they thought they would get to see her grow up still.
Maybe
if she lived next door.
Yeah, because he was scared, so he's just like, sure, that works for me. So after the child is born, it's a girl, is given to the sorceress, who names her Rapunzel after the plant her mother craved while pregnant. I think that's great. I know it sounds mean, but the sorceress is like, I'm going to name you after the plant that your parents stole and then sold you for.
Right?
How ironic. I hope she didn't know that was why.
I don't know. I was thinking about that too.
It doesn't clarify in the story if Rapunzel knew that wasn't her mother. If she knew the sorceress wasn't her mother, or if she knew her parents sold her. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways, when Rapunzel turns 12, the sorceress locks her up in a tower in the middle of the woods. The tower had only one window and no stairs. So when the sorceress went to visit her, she'd have to stand below the tower and yell, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair that I might climb their dyed golden hair. It says stare on, that's so dumb.
I guess
my notes are written wrong.
What is the sorceress reasoning? Like, what possesses you? She's too beautiful at 12? Are you worried? Like,
that's
did you
all
not
I read
teach
was
the
like
disciplinary?
That when she turned 12, she was really beautiful, so the sorceress locked her up. That's all it says. It doesn't give.
She didn't go through an ugly phase. Nobody goes through ugly phases anymore.
Apparently not. See, and that's the thing with like Disneyfication. If you watch Disney movies, all the Disney princesses are like gorgeous. They're super skinny. They have beautiful skin. Their hair is always bright and glowing, and they don't have any problems. That's inaccurate. That's just not life.
No,
people don't look like that.
Maybe Walt Disney thought he was helping people by like putting them into a different world where you don't need to worry. Everything's rainbows and unicorns. I think it's, now that I'm an adult and I've experienced things, trash, but I see where you're going with it.
Well, yeah, I think that's a thing where like the standards are too high. It's like how people always looked at Barbie dolls and they're like, the standards are too high. Why can't we have a Barbie doll that has normal feet? Humans' feet aren't long and pointy. You know, like no. why nobody has that small of a waist? Nobody's hair is that perfect. Like why are the standards so high for little girls? I'm still waiting for the day that a Disney movie comes out where they make a princess who maybe doesn't have hair or is going through something and maybe she has a lot of skin blemishes. Like, oh my God, they haven't done that. They've never done that.
Okay, no, they have not, but you made me think of something else that just happened. She's technically not a princess, but Little Mei Mei Ling. Have you seen Turning Red?
I have not yet.
I highly suggest you watch it because we're talking about like unrealistic expectations. And there are some things that they talk about in that movie that people were very upset about. I don't know if you know the premise of like, when you are considered to be a young lady and you go through your cycle for the first time, and it's a lot. It's a lot for you for many years, in my opinion, because it's like you have to relearn everything all over again. But that's beside the point. And so people were really upset about like talking about hormonal issues and talking about getting your period for the first time. And I was like, but this is literally how real life is.
Right.
Like,
I actually did hear about people complaining about that in the movie, because there's a scene I saw like a little still image of them having like boxes of pads and tampons on like their bathroom counter. And it's like, that's real. That's showing people that it's okay to talk about that because that's normal life.
Yeah, so I thought it was great. I was like, finally, they're showing people, because if I didn't have a mom that was there or a good guardian to like explain what's happening, why do I feel this way?
Yeah.
Am I dying? Like, is something wrong with me? Like,
it's a lot to deal with as a kid. Yeah.
Because you like grow up trying to learn yourself, and then your body changes again. And then by the time you start having kids, it changes again. So you're almost like relearning everything. It's a lot of work being a lady.
So on the flip side of that, I wonder if the reason people wrote fairy tales was because they liked the unrealism of it, because they wanted to escape how awful life can be sometimes. And sorry, the 1800s were not pretty. They were dark and dirty and really gross. And fairy tales were also kind of dark, and I think that reflected the time frame that people lived in. But maybe they liked the thought of princes and princesses and sorceresses, and it was an escape.
Yeah, I do like that point of view too. An easier sense of life.
And I think that's why they're so outrageous, because it was something that people didn't really have. So it was kind of fun to read about.
I agree, especially the next part of the story where little Princey Pooh decides to show up, and I'm like, okay, he just doesn't wander ironically next to the one tower in the middle of the woods, but okay.
Right? Yeah, so he's just riding through the woods.
Point, yeah.
Just riding through the woods on his horse, and he hears Rapunzel singing. And I didn't really like put it in my notes, but like he searched forever trying to find where the voice was coming from. So I don't know how loud she was singing, but it took him a while to find it. So he finally finds her tower out in the woods and searches for a way to enter it, but can't find any. So he went away kind of discouraged, but he keeps coming back. He returns often just to listen to her singing. She kind of had a stalker and didn't even know it. But the one day, as he's like hiding out, just listening to her singing, he sees the sorceress visit and learns how to gain entry, riding up on her hair. So he waits for the sorceress to leave, then beckons for Rapunzel to let down her hair so he could climb up. This part of the story only confused me because clearly the voice is a lot different than the sorceress that just left. So I don't know why she was totally chill, just letting some random dude climb up her hair, but besides the point.
How tall was this tower? Like, surely if you heard the voice, you're like, that doesn't sound like her. But does she not care? And she's like, oh wow, maybe I can get out of this tower.
Versus, that's what I thought, was maybe she was interested in seeing who it was.
Yeah, because like if you look down, like you could probably tell, like, oh, that man has a beard. That's probably not the sorceress.
Right? I don't know.
Unless they have a beard, I don't know. Maybe they have long hair. I mean, there's so many questions.
Yeah, because the story just goes so quickly. So it's basically, he calls for her to let down her hair. She does. He climbs up. They fall in love. He asks to marry her. She says yes. That's the whole thing right there. So then
that's just it. There's like no details. It's just like boom, 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 the end, and it's like,
that's what when I was like reading up on this. It just happened so fast.
Yeah, like, did you have enough money to print like more to the story, or like, hey, I only have 300 pages. It has to fit within 300 pages.
I think because there's the rest of the story is so chaotic. Like they skipped the whole. They spent time together and got to know each other. It was nope. She pulled him in. They fell in love. He's like, hey, you want to get married? And she's like, yep.
Unrealistic. Learn the person in question, because they could be totally different than what they're portraying when they first meet each other.
Right. Just some random dude shows up in the woods, climbs your hair to your tower. I would question that.
Must have been awfully handsome. She was deceived.
I mean, in the movie, the Disney movie, she's, way more cautious. She hits him on the head repeatedly with a pan, and her
I'm okay
lizard
with that.
sticks his tongue in his ear and everything. It just.
I just like to say good for her because those cast iron pans are heavy.
I'm
So
surprised she didn't kill him. Let's just be real.
yeah, same.
And she hits him more than once. So again, I'm surprised he doesn't have brain damage. Anyways, I will continue. So they decided to escape. So they were making a plan to escape. The prince came every night and gave Rapunzel a piece of silk that she would gradually weave into a ladder. And I don't know how long that went on for, but excuse me. Rapunzel mistakenly gives the prince away one day. And there was two different versions of this that I read. In the original version of the story, it says that Rapunzel tells the sorceress her reason for having all this silk in the house was because her dress was becoming too tight around her waist. And that was hinting at her possibly being pregnant. In a later version, she mistakenly asks the sorceress why it's easier to pull her up into the tower than it was to pull up the prince. Or it was easier for her to pull the prince up than it was to pull the sorceress up. I think that's just harsh.
He's probably got muscle. He's probably actually okay. All right. So
no, she's saying that the prince is easier to pull up. So
yeah,
was
but
the sorceress all plump and stuff? I mean, that's just mean.
And I go to how long was her hair? Because at 12, you put her in this tower. How tall is this tower? Hair doesn't grow that long. Unless maybe you have magical properties. Maybe that's why the plant was something else.
Right. And I don't think it says how long she had been in the tower. I don't think it says. And I don't know that there was any magic in the plant. Because in the movie she has her hair glows when she sings and everything. That didn't happen. I don't think her hair had magical properties in this story. It doesn't say that.
I don't think so either. It just seems so if I'm envisioning the tall tower that we iconically see, it's you'd need an awful lot of hair and it would need to be thick and strong. Because if not, girl, ooh, it just makes my skull.
I think it is really tall though. And I'll tell you why later. But getting just back to why I don't think there was any magical properties in her hair or anything. After Rapunzel accidentally gives away the prince and that there had been someone else coming to the tower, it infuriates the sorceress so much that she cuts off Rapunzel's hair, just all of her hair, and casts her into the wilderness to fend for herself. I don't know where... That's all it says. I don't know where the wilderness is outside of the forest, but it was a wilderness. And I don't know. That night, though, the prince comes to the tower and calls her Rapunzel, and the sorceress lets down the severed hair out of the tower and pulls him up. The prince is shocked to find her and not Rapunzel, and after she tells him that he would never see Rapunzel again, the story says he either leaps or falls from the window, it's one or the other, and lands in a thorn bush. And although the thorn bush broke his fall, effectively saving his life, the thorns scratch his eyes and he becomes blind.
When I read this immediately made me think of Into the Woods.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Where also a little, I see what they were doing with that. Also a little unexpected too, but I just thought that was kind of interesting that they also went down the darker route too, to more the original side of the OG stories.
So I just kind of think the tower is really tall because I think he fell from quite a height for it to say he landed in a bush and it saved his life. So he landed on something somewhat soft, I guess, instead of hitting the ground.
But why would you leave your eyes exposed like that? Normally, if you're you fall, you'd kind of prep yourself a little bit, like a rolled tuck or something.
And he just landed full arms and face down, right down into the thorn bush. And he's like, I'm alive, but I have no eyeballs. Or he did. I don't know, maybe he was it scratched his eyes and he couldn't see anymore.
Yeah, and unless he was so distraught that he could not continue. He was in agony to live a life without her.
Yeah, so he wasn't pushed or anything. He either leapt out of the tower or he fell out of the tower. It was one or the other. Anyways, after this happens and he becomes blind, he just wanders for years in the wilderness of the country. until he just happens to come upon the wilderness where Rapunzel is now living with the twins that she had given birth to. Because in the original story, like I said, her reason for all the silk was because she was secretly pregnant. So she had twins while she was living out in the wilderness. And one day as she's singing, the prince happens to hear her, and he's able to blindly find his way over to her, and they're reunited. And as they hug, her tears fall on his face and immediately restore his sight. Yeah,
Wow.
I'll let you just think about that for a second as I continue. He then leads her and his children to his kingdom, where they live happily ever after. I have a comment before I read the next this last
continue.
bit. He wandered in the wilderness for years, and then he's just like, let's go back to my kingdom. Did they not think he was dead? He just disappeared, wanders around for years. And he just goes back to his kingdom and lives happily ever after. I'm sorry, doesn't he have people looking for him? Did they not anoint a new prince or whatever? How does that work?
I also thought of this, or like maybe he thought he was going to be embarrassed that he was blind and couldn't actually lead because he couldn't see. Because I'm sure there was like a stigma with like not being able to be like a full functioning human back then too.
Probably.
But then it also makes me kind of laugh that he's like, oh, my sight's been restored. I know exactly where I'm at. Like, how'd you get food? How'd you survive? Did you beg people? Like, did you have a horse? Like, there's so many logical pieces that I think are missing. And then it's like, oh my gosh, these are your kids. Like, what?
Right. And he wandered for years before just stumbling across her wilderness. Was there not, I'm sorry, again, people looking for him? Like, if he did have to go into villages and different places to get food and rest and other things, like, would no one have recognized him as the prince? Was he not well known? Was his kingdom not well known?
Yeah. What if there was war? Like, what if your kingdom was like gone to ribbons and you left a fully established household in the wilderness? Like, then there's a lot of open-ended
he could have just stayed in the wilderness and been like, I'm not responsible. Pretty much.
Honestly.
Yeah. So the last bit of this, that was the end of that story. But there's another version of the story that shows what happens to the sorceress in the end. And in this version, she apparently untied the severed hair after pulling the prince into the tower, but it slips from her hands and it lands far below the tower on the ground, trapping her inside. So again, I think the tower is just too tall for someone to jump out of and not be horribly maimed. I don't know why there was nothing in the tower that you could tie together and kind of like get lower down enough to like drop and be okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about this at the beginning, but now that we've gone full circle with the story, and we've seen one possible ending, oh, she's trapped on the inside.
Right.
How'd you get up there in the first place? How'd you get the 12-year-old kid up there? Like, she didn't just magically have that hair to be like, you know, like a grappling hook.
That's what I think is interesting about the Disney version, because it shows when Mother Gothel comes back to the house and can't get Rapunzel to respond to her, she like digs out a secret hidden entrance in the back that had stairs that lead up.
Yes.
Like, there had to be a back entrance, or else you're right. How would she get a 12-year-old girl up there? Catapult? She just catapulted this poor child right through the window.
Oh my gosh.
Wait till you're old enough and I'll call down your hair. Because then, I'm sorry, until she was older, like a 12-year-old couldn't have hair that was that long. So she would have had to wait until she was like a teenager or more of an adult to even start properly visiting and being pulled up into the tower.
You know, if I've learned one thing from my education, is that that's why we proofread and we reread steps and instructions, because that so many holes in the plot. Granted, it was a different time when this was written, of course, but like, I think of their writing style and I think about the assignment I had in 5th grade or 6th grade, one of the two, where it's like, write a story on how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So it'd be like, take the bread out. And so you try to like grab at the bread. Oh, but you didn't untie the twisty tie to fully open the bag and then grab the bread on the inside.
That's what I don't think there was I don't want to say there wasn't scholars, there were, but I feel like when these stories were written, there was no one really critiquing the
Yeah.
little plot holes or anything. No one was pulling it apart or analyzing it the way we are now. It was just a fun story to read.
Yeah.
And
I'd agree with that.
that's fine. I mean, I like fun stories. I like fairy tales that don't make sense because it's fun and mysterious. But it's fun to look back now and just be like, why?
Yeah.
There's
Same.
holes. Like I want to know more. I think that's the thing about it for me is I want to know more. Or I wish I could talk to them now and be like, what was your mindset when you wrote this crazy story?
Yes. And I also want to make a note because I'm glad you brought it up too about how different versions are. Because I have a couple of like Grimm fairy tale books, so like fairy tales and Grimm fairy tales, where it like the different versions are. So I think it's really cool to
Yeah.
see how like things were transcribed and altered to make it sound either better or worse, depending.
Can I just say really quick? This is another story we weren't going to talk about, but I remember being traumatized by this when I was younger.
Oh, what's that?
Because I didn't realize this is how it was. So we've probably all seen little cartoons of, Little Red Riding Hood and stuff, and different cartoon versions. Mickey Mouse had them, Looney Tunes had them. Like there's lots of different cartoons out there for Little Red Riding Hood. But I remember we used to have it was like a fairy tale dictionary or something, and my dad would read it to us. And he didn't always read to us as a kid, so I think that's why I remember it so well was him reading us some of these crazy fairy tales. And this one just stuck with me because I hated it so much that in the original Little Red Riding Hood, um, the wolf actually ate the grandmother, and I think he may have eaten a few other people, but
I think so.
I'm trying to remember. I think Little Red Riding Hood fed him something to make him throw up, and he threw up the grandmother. She was whole. He had eaten her alive, and he threw her up. And then the grandmother, I hate this so much. They didn't kill the wolf. They waited for him to be asleep, or they fed him something to make him fall asleep. And then they cut his stomach open and filled it with rocks.
Really?
Yeah, and then they sewed him
I
back up. So when he woke up the next day, he realized he was really hungry and thirsty, or he was really thirsty, he wasn't hungry, and he felt really heavy. So he went to the well to get a drink of water, and he was so heavy he fell in and drowned.
Interesting. I thought it was different. Maybe I read it somewhere else, or maybe I'm wrong, but I remember like the wolf eating a few people, like you said, but then he ate the woodsman who had an axe, and then he like cut him from the inside out.
Mm. See, there's different versions out there. It's weird.
Yeah. Oh my
I
gosh.
just remember the implications of just like cutting him open while he was still alive. It still freaks me out to this day. I hate that. Anytime you're watching something or reading something and something happens like that to someone who's still alive, or a creature starts eating someone and they're still alive, that terrifies me. That's like a weird inward fear of mine. Like, I never want to be eaten alive or like killed.
That's,
Well, I'm alive. Like, if
oh
that
my
makes sense.
gosh. Yeah. Ugh, it's traumatic.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I just remember that story being really traumatizing. I don't even know what version that is. I would have to look that up because I don't know if that's original, if that was a remake of that story. Why don't you start reading our second one, and I'm going to do
I
some
would
weird
love
Googling
to.
really quick.
Let me get my sheet here. I have it all prepped and ready. So
Yeah.
I just think it's, of course, we had to put this one in here, obvious reasons.
Yeah, I thought you would like that.
Yes, I do know this one quite well, so I was excited to see this one. Okay, if you guys don't know, it's the Little Mermaid. So yes, Little Miss Redheaded, Little Miss Ariel, bopping under the sea, singing her song, which yeah, Disney got some things right, not so much. So like Ariel was never mentioned in the original work, always referred to as the Little Mermaid. And the story follows the Little Mermaid as she turns 15 and she can finally visit the surface to see the world above the water. And she sees the sinking ship, similar to the movie, and saves a young prince from drowning. Ah, the drama. How exciting. Your first time up in the surface and you save a
You get
drowning
to
prince.
save someone? Yeah.
I also want to know, how do you know it's a prince? Like, how does she know? I guess, yeah, she is royalty, but like, how do you identify other species that you haven't seen as
I don't
royalty? But that's
know.
beside the point.
I guess I
So
didn't really think
then
about
this,
that, but yeah. He had
yeah, it's
his
kind
shirt on that said like, "I'm a prince.
of, I'm a prince, save
I'm
me,
a
please.
prince."
So then she takes the unconscious prince to the temple where a young woman finds him, and he believes she's the one who saved his life. Of course, the Little Mermaid, devastated, saddened by the fact that the prince didn't see her at all. And so her grandmother informs her that the humans live a very short life compared to mermaids. But
Mhm.
humans have eternal souls that go to heaven when they die. Whereas when mermaids die, they turn into sea foam and just cease to exist.
And I will say, I
Which,
didn't write down right there, but normally mermaids live like 300 years.
oh, that's what I was gonna ask, because I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I wonder if they
Yeah. So they live like
mentioned any.
300 years and then they turn into sea foam.
Oh, which is crazy. Well, so the Little Mermaid, she visits the sea witch, okay, similar, who sells her a
Mhm.
potion to give her legs in exchange for her beautiful voice. And so the witch warns her that the potion will feel like a sword passing through her body, and that once she drinks it, she will never be able to return to the sea.
Mhm.
Like, ooh, yowzer. I'm
Right?
glad that was not in the Disney version because, she only signed over her soul to live at the eternal abyss of Ursula's cave. But, at least
Yeah.
she's able, I guess, to enjoy the ocean. And if the Little Mermaid
Yeah.
wanted to stay human, she needed to obtain a soul, which is like, what?
Yeah. So again, I left a little bit out because there was just so much to it. But I think the way the witch told her, like, you can obtain a soul by making the prince fall in love with her,
Hmm.
that was, and it does, I think it's mentioned a little bit later, but I'll clarify it right now. So that was her main goal for like getting a soul, was to make the prince fall in love with her.
Right. And I just would like to say, she needs to be put in a gambling rehab because that's a very big risk. Your life
Right?
must be pretty terrible if, being a sea princess, just to be like, oh,
I
I,
know.
I have to marry this guy. I love him so much. He didn't even talk to you.
Right? I think it would
Like,
just be terrifying to just sign off like your life as a mermaid forever and be like, if you drink this potion, you can never be a mermaid again. You can never go
yeah,
back to who you are. That's terrifying.
I guess her desire to like be with him was so strong compared to the other, but
Yeah.
like, girl, don't be young and dumb.
Mm-hmm. She needed to talk to her family about this instead of the sea witch. Just saying.
Yeah, yeah.
She
Which,
needed someone else.
yeah. So of course, like we've seen that part. She has to fall in love with the prince. So she does drink the potion and washes up on shore where the prince finds her. And soon she is the prince's favorite companion, and he loves to watch her dance, which I think can be a little creepy.
Yeah, I thought that was weird too. That's all it says. Like he just loves to watch her dance so much.
I maybe not like in a creepy sense, but like dancing the waltzes and things, because now since she took the potion, she has the ability to dance now more beautifully than any other person. I'm sure the waves helped her be quite smooth or suave, and now she has
Yeah.
legs, which is great. But the crappy part
But
is
yeah.
that yeah, she constantly feels like she is walking on sharp knives.
So
So
is
I
it
didn't
even a
realize
perk? Is it even a perk
what.
to be able to dance more beautifully than everybody if you feel like you're stepping on knives the whole time you're dancing? Is
Well,
that even a
yeah,
perk?
I thought when I first read the story though that it was just as she was turning into a human, it was gonna feel like knives. I didn't realize when she danced, like any of that, just knives all the time.
Yes.
That would be immediate red flag for me.
Yeah. So it felt like she was being stabbed when she first drank the potion, but then yeah, anytime she would dance, she also felt like she was stepping on knives. It's like,
But
why? Why take this potion? It sounds horrible. There's no perks to it. Because if he
yeah,
doesn't fall in love with you, you don't get a soul.
she's just
And then you
young
die.
and yeah, unfortunately naive. And it gets worse. It
It
gets
does. It gets
worse.
worse. This story's messed up.
Yeah, yeah, I would have not done this for a boy. I can tell you
Yeah.
that. I barely liked him when I, was a teen, like, ooh, nope,
Uh-huh.
stay away. And so she danced constantly for the prince despite the pain.
Yes.
But in the end, the prince never fell in love with her. Yowzer.
There's the big
no trick.
difference right there.
Yeah, there's no trick like there is in the movie where, Ursula comes back and she's this beautiful girl, uses Ariel's voice. None of that. It's
None of that happens.
None. Oh, by the way, there's no Sebastian, Flounder, Scuttle, none of that either.
Can you sing like Scuttle? I can sing like Scuttle. Because Scuttle's a horrible singer. That's what I sound like when I try to sing.
Scuttle tries. He's there when it counts.
Yeah.
which I think is even a bigger blow too. Is after they're never gonna fall in love together. The prince marries the temple woman.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the dagger. Forget the dagger in the feet. It's the dagger to the heart at this point.
Yep.
Just a glutton for punishment, I guess. And so, as the witch had said, she had warned her that at dawn, the day after the prince marries someone else, the Little Mermaid would die of a broken heart and dissolve into sea foam. She despaired.
So she still took that chance with she just assumed somewhere in her mind she was so in love with him that she didn't think that he would ever fall in love with someone else. Did she just think he has to love me? I'm gonna become human so I can make him fall in love with me. He never knew her before she washed up on the beach. He didn't know she saved his life. And I think that was partially why he fell in love with the woman from the temple, because he believed she was the one that saved him.
Yeah, and my whole thing is so when they say Ursula, which granted she's not called Ursula in this original story, the sea witch takes her, is it just her singing voice or her overall voice so she couldn't speak like we see in the movie?
Oh, yeah, I believe it was her overall voice. I don't believe she could speak in the original story either.
Because the way they write it is favorite companion. And it's oh, okay. And then it's boom, I'm marrying the temple lady. I'm your BFF. We hang out all the time. If it's mutual, but I guess it wasn't mutual.
That's what they didn't really mention a whole lot about it. And I summarized it even more to make it a little shorter to fit, but not by much. It was just he loved hanging out with her and being with her. He loved watching her dance. But yeah, it's not like they had conversations, because I do believe she was mute from selling her voice. But yeah, his parents had arranged a marriage for him or something, and he's I don't want to marry her. I'm in love with a temple woman. And they bring the arranged woman to meet him, and it is the temple woman. And he's oh, you're the one I was in love with anyways. So they get married.
Yeah.
Because he thought she saved him. He didn't even know the Little Mermaid. That's what hurts me about her, is she was so naive, and she was just so convinced that she could get him to fall in love. And she had no basis for that.
I'm telling you, love is something, that's for sure.
Oh yeah.
And this part, I will say, does make me sad, but also a little happy. So this is a sad part. She despairs in thinking of her coming death, just before dawn, her sisters, which are mermaids, of course. Hooray. Yes. They come to the surface and they bring a dagger that they got from the sea witch. So here's another stipulation, which I'd love to know what they gave in return for this stipulation.
They sold their hair, actually.
Oh my God.
All of them sold their hair.
Right?
Yeah.
I was is it in there? I don't remember reading that part.
No, I read that on the
thing. Okay. I was I don't recall that. Oh my gosh. Oh, well, good.
No, okay, it was again, I didn't know how much time it would have, and I was summarizing.
Okay. That's why I'm did I not? I missed it?
No, I would sell my hair for my sisters. For sure.
See, I didn't remember that part. I just knew they had the dagger.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, I could do that. I could do the hair thing. Fine with that. And so the stipulation is, if the Little Mermaid kills the prince and lets the blood drip onto her feet, she would become a mermaid again and avoid death. But as you all could gather, she could not bring herself to kill him, though. So she throws herself on the dagger into the sea right before dawn. And instead of turning into sea foam, though, she finds that she has turned into an earthbound spirit and ascends into the air, where she meets other spirits who tell her she's become like them because she tried so hard to obtain a soul.
Mm-hmm.
Which, crazy. So
right,
she's Yeah. She is then given the chance to earn a soul by doing good deeds for mankind for 300 years. So, like, she's not dead?
She's like a floating sky spirit, and she gets to live for 300 years. She just has to do good deeds, which I mean is the lifespan of a mermaid anyways, but she's an earth
Yeah.
spirit. I don't know.
That's kind of, and so I always have the question of like, did people believe in like earthbound spirits back in that day? Because typically you have like one religion, you know?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, there were
I'm not
others,
sure.
but I thought that part was also interesting. And also the chance of like being able to do good deeds. So, like, good deeds for humans, for mermaids? Do you just get to be everywhere?
It didn't say. I imagine
Yeah.
so. I picture like spirits as being just like they can go anywhere, right? They
Yeah.
have no physical body, physical form.
And then I also wonder, so after she, you know, like sacrificed herself, trying to be a good person, so I take like her sisters are kind of there with her, which, girl, I would do that for my sister too. I'd cut my hair and be like,
Yep.
yes, girl,
Yep.
come on back home, do what you got to do. I'll wait for you right here.
Mm-hmm.
But do they know she's an earthbound spirit? Like they just kind of.
I don't know if they got to see what happened. And
Yeah.
excuse me, threw herself into the sea. I don't know if they saw her change or the fact that she didn't become sea foam. I don't know.
that's kind of because it just says she ascends into the air.
I know. See, that's another thing.
Are you
Like,
an airbender
I
now?
have more questions. Like, I wish I could talk to the author and just be like, what happened? I need more. There's more to it. Or I wonder,
Yeah.
like, if they had different things in their mind that they didn't write down. Like, in their mind, do they know how the sisters felt? Do they know, did the sisters get to watch what happened to her and know where she is now?
Yeah.
Like, is that just something that, oh, they know what happens because they wrote the story, they just didn't write that part in?
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, I'm
So
curious.
there are so
More
many more of
questions.
these, but we only like hit on a few because
Right.
they are
And
so long and depending like because we can get pretty chatty
and I want to tell
depending on
you
what we're talking
really
about.
quick that when we were talking about Little Red Riding Hood earlier, in the French version, there is a woodcutter, and in the Grimm's version, there's a hunter. So he did cut open the sleeping wolf, and when Little Red Riding Hood and the grandmother emerge, they fill his body with stones, and then he wakes up, goes for a drink, drowns.
Oh.
So I just don't remember there being
So it's a combo.
So you remembered part of it and I remember part of it, but you were right. And see, that's where I thought there was a different version of the Little Mermaid, but I couldn't find it. Maybe if I did some like really deep digging on the internet, I could find it. But I thought there was a version where she was so distraught that she tried to sew her legs back together to become a mermaid again.
Oh my God. I
I
don't
could
know
be
that
entirely
one.
wrong, but I swear I remember reading that.
I also though, I don't think it'd be that far fetched, speaking how dark everything gets to be. Like kill the prince and put his blood droplets on your feet. Like, you know,
Right? Yeah.
blood and feet is Cinderella, Little Mermaid.
Right. So that's what I think is interesting too about the live action version of movies that they're trying to do, where I think they're trying to go a little more accurate on some of the things. I can't speak for all the movies that they've done being more accurate to the fairy tale versions, but like Into the Woods, we touched on,
Yes.
definitely taps into the darker side of fairy tales, even though it's a mix of a lot of the different fairy tales and the characters and stuff. It definitely taps into that dark energy. And the new Mulan, I have not watched it, but I've read a lot about it. I've seen a lot about it, and they even said they were going to try to go more into like the real story of Mulan instead of, you know, the Disney version that they have done. So they were trying to tap into like this actual warrior woman and tell her story. She didn't
Yes,
have
you
a
need to
little.
watch it. Yes,
She did not have a little
please watch
dragon,
it so we can talk
unfortunately.
about it.
No, I haven't watched it yet. There's a lot of the live action Disney movies
There's
I
so
haven't
many.
seen yet. I never
Some are
watched
better than others.
Cinderella. I didn't watch The Lion King. I've seen Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast. I don't know what some of the other ones are that they've done Or is that all of them?
Yeah,
Am I
I'm trying to
missing any?
remember. I think
There's been
there's
a lot of live action versions of The Little Mermaid,
yes.
not done by Disney, and I haven't seen any of them, but I know John
There's
Stamos is
bunch.
in one of them.
Is that the new one that's supposedly coming out with like Halle Berry? I've heard that online.
Hang on, I have to look it up. It was like a TV movie one, I think.
Oh, the TV special, because wasn't he Chef Louis?
I have to just look up Little Mermaid John Stamos.
I'm pretty sure he's Chef Louis. If I'm envisioning.
Yeah,
what you
he
were
is.
talking
He
about.
is.
I will say, because I watched it, because I do enjoy The Little Mermaid, even though
Yeah, it was a live
crazy child.
version. Was Jodie Benson actually in it?
I don't remember her being in it, but it doesn't mean that she wasn't there. I might have just forgotten. I just know John Stamos was having a ball being Chef Louis, and I was living for it.
Oh, yeah.
I love
That's
les poissons. How I love les poissons.
That'd be really cool if she was in the TV version, though, because she was the original singing voice for Ariel.
Yes. Fun fact, she's also Barbie in Toy Story.
Oh. She's also Belle. She's the voice actor for Belle.
I was just going to say, isn't she another princess too?
Yes. Yep, she's Belle and the singing voice for Ariel. I'm just trying to find if she was in the live action. Can I find the full cast for the live action version, please?
I don't see why you couldn't. I'm sure it's online. It's just a matter of finding it in the right place, because you know the internet is so vast.
No, whoops.
Because after this, then we have to do, because we've talked quite a bit about Disneyfication, which I knew we would. There's so many things, because we're also still going to do our word detective too later on.
I have to watch this. I'm so intrigued now, because you're right. Halle Berry is Ariel, but I just saw Daveed Diggs is Sebastian. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's good, because I've seen a lot of live actions where I'm like, I didn't really feel bad about it, but I didn't really like it.
I'll watch it just for him. All my Hamilton fans out there know why. Have you seen Hamilton?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'm just double checking. I was sure you had. I had to double check.
That's fine.
But do we? Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, we still have a word detective. Yeah,
we have to do word detective. Let me share my screen.
We'll probably talk through this one pretty quick, because you guys are probably like, wow, this is probably the record for the world's longest podcast from us.
Oh, sorry, my screen's all, ignore that. There we go. Boom. Word detective.
No. Oh boy.
Yeah. So if you're new,
just looking at it,
welcome. That's a little late, but word detective we do at the end of every podcast. So Nathan, our editor, gives us a fun word that we've never heard of, and it's our job as detectives to figure out what that word means. June's word is, I love the fact that he gave us a pronunciation so we don't have to struggle.
Thank goodness. I'm telling you. Thank you, Nathan, because it was painful, I think.
What? I think, yeah, maybe he just didn't like that we were pronouncing things. This month's word is lugubrious.
That's what I was going to say.
Lugubrious. It sounds gooey.
I also was thinking that, and then I was kind of thinking of like lubrication, you know, like if you'd put oil on, like for an oil can, like something that makes something, you know, like, I don't know, movable is my initial reaction. Or it could be a booger.
Could be. It could be.
It could be anything at this point.
Those things are so different. I love it. Let's get our first clue here. Clue number one. Clue number one, sorry. No need to be down. Lugubrious is an adjective used for the first time, or at least recorded, in the year 1585, which also happens to be the same year Spain seizes Brussels and Netherlands. And Netherlands accepts the Gregorian calendar. Okay. I love those little fun facts because I don't see what it has to do with the word.
Yeah, I'm going to ignore the fun fact today because it doesn't sound helpful at all to me.
Yeah, so it is an adjective, so it is describing something.
Okay.
As being, what would you put that in a sentence? Like, this thing is lugubrious.
The wax on the wax statue was lugubrious.
So it was like melting? For some reason, I'm picturing it being like a drippy substance.
It could be drippy. I mean, or like I almost want to say sticky is kind of like where I keep leaning towards.
Okay. Let's move on. Clue
Maybe
number
like
2.
glue. Oh
Oh
no.
no.
It totally goes in the opposite
Oh no.
direction.
All these pictures relate to lugubrious, but how? So it's a picture
Um,
of possibly
or
storm clouds. It's like a
are we
cloudy sky,
sad?
a sad face emoji, a crying face emoji, I should say. Some guy with his mouth wide open. I'm assuming he's crying like
Yes.
hysterically. And then it's the happy sad faces from movie theaters.
Oh, maybe it's something related describing conflict. Like it could be you're feeling you
Oh,
want to be happy, but you feel sad, or like a storm's brewing. So like maybe emotions are getting stirred up.
your emotions are lugubrious.
Maybe because I'm only picking up emotions
Lugubrious.
from what I'm visually seeing here.
Yeah, it's all like, because I would say like tears and sadness, but there's also the clouds, the stormy looking sky.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you're right. Like storm clouds brewing or emotions brewing. It's coming to a head. It's lugubrious.
Yeah.
That is not an easy word to
Lugubrious.
say.
I
That's
know. That's why I have to say it slowly. Lugubrious.
lugubrious. That's I always struggle when he says like, or he puts in the fun facts like, oh, this word was coined in 1500. Like, was everybody just walk around saying this eloquently? Like, I can barely say it. And if
There's no
they
way.
used it in everyday vernacular, like, how? How?
I don't think so. I think it was definitely more scholar or higher level of society for sure. Because if you're just working the fields, just trying to survive, I doubt you're trying to work on your vernacular to be like, I feel quite lugubrious today.
Do you also like think, you know how people say time moved a lot slower way back when and people move too
Yes.
fast now? I also
Yes.
believe people talked a lot slower
Back then or now?
back then.
Oh, I would agree with that for
Yeah, I
sure.
think they definitely talked a lot slower. Okay, let's get
I
our
could do with a
third
slowdown.
clue. Yes. Here's your final clue in a sentence. Oh, I hate that. The lugubrious children seemed odd regarding the canceled test since the teacher knew they were complaining about it a week prior.
Oh, so
So
maybe
is
it's
it like,
confusion. So you don't know how to feel, maybe. So like, I
or
feel
were
like the
they like
confused,
grumpy and sad
but
about not
see,
having a test?
but why would you be sad though if you were complaining about it? I'd be ecstatic because if there
That's
was
why
something I was dreading,
they seemed odd regarding the canceled test. I don't know, lugubrious.
that's a good point.
So they were upset. Is it just like being upset?
I mean, it would work with the emotional bit we were talking about earlier too, about being sad. Like you don't know if you're going to be happy or sad,
That's why I
but
guess the storm clouds picture is throwing me off. It makes me think of it more of like
maybe they haven't decided if they're sad or not. Maybe it's like you haven't decided on the emotion you're selecting.
maybe lugubrious children in a sentence sounds weird in my mind and
I
I don't
can
like
just
it.
I can just tell you because I agree with you completely. When I saw it in the sentence, I'm like, I'm never using this.
There's something about the word that my brain keeps thinking
Lugubrious.
it sounds like lube.
It sure
Like
does. Maybe that's why.
I think that's what's bothering me.
Lugubrious.
Lugubrious children. Let's find out what that means.
Yeah, we need to find this out. Oh,
Lugubrious. It can also be a noun, lugubriousness, ugh, or an adverb, lugubriously, which all of them mean mournful or dismal, very sad in an exaggerated or insincere way.
oh,
Oh, I get it. Like the theater
okay.
mask is kind of like an exaggerated thing because it's acting.
And that would explain the guy too being so like mouth gaping
Right?
open.
That was such
I didn't think
so much.
I didn't think of looking at those images of being exaggerated. I only saw sadness. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
because if I just see you're sad, I'm like, it doesn't matter how sad you are, I can still tell you're sad, even if it's a
I thought
tidbit
that guy
sad.
was just severely upset. But yeah, it is exaggerated and it's mournful and
Yeah.
dismal. According to
That's why
Merriam-Webster, sorry,
I
go
like
ahead.
we have a visual for us.
Oh
I think
yeah,
that's cool. We do both sides of the coin, the wording, the visual.
It's so much more helpful to see all of that and kind of put it together, because it does help us like deduce what it is we're looking at. But according to Merriam-Webster, lugubrious is the sole surviving English offspring of Latin lugere, meaning to mourn. Its closest kin, luctual, is an adjective meaning sad or sorrowful, was put to rest centuries ago. Well, that's lugubrious.
Huh.
How lugubrious that they put it to rest.
I wouldn't know why.
Yeah, they just don't use it anymore.
I mean,
not to say that you couldn't. I feel like that's more of like, oh, they stopped putting it in dictionaries, or people stopped writing it like that. Like,
it's probably because it's so long.
Yeah.
You could just say, oh, I was very sad.
Or yeah, if the synonyms are mournful and dismal, why not just use mournful and dismal?
Yeah.
Oh, that was the last. I just showed you guys an empty page.
We were paying attention this time, yeah. Because I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, what comes after this?
I looked on the slide and I'm like, I can show more stuff. Nope, it's just an empty page.
Wow.
That's okay. I looked.
Lugubrious.
I'll probably never use it, unfortunately, but I like learning new words.
It was a good word because our initial, well, at least my initial reaction was so off. It wasn't even funny.
I'm so happy it's not a wet, sticky substance, because that's what I thought it was.
Same. Immediate thought was, is this a fancy word for a booger? I'm so glad that it's not the case.
Yep. Only because Nathan, he would do that. Because we still talk about Meldrop.
We sure do. Meldrop definitely has stuck.
That was one of our first episodes. If you're curious what that word is, go listen to some of our first episodes, because that was right in the beginning.
You could even skip ahead. We wouldn't be upset either. Like,
no,
you're not hurting our feelings. Yeah.
Just go ahead and look for that word. We do. It used to be word scientist, and we changed it to word detective, because we're detecting what a new word is, and then Nathan can give us clues so we wouldn't struggle as hard, because my God, did we struggle in the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
This new format is way better for you and for us.
I have definitely gotten way better.
Yes.
For sure.
And it's the clues that help.
Yeah.
Like, I love, we had a guest on, and I don't remember the word we had, but he was like, I wasn't going to say spot on. He was not spot on, but he was just so, the way he was talking, like he knew what he was talking about, he knew what the word was, and basically he came to the conclusion that it was like dried salted fish, and it was not even close to what the word was.
Was it Patrick? It
was Bill
O'Keefe, right?
Yeah. No.
Okay, that's why I'm like, wait, I know it's O'Keefe, and I was like, I know his name. I know his name.
Patrick O'Keefe is a local author. We had Bill Kiefer on the podcast.
Listen, he honestly, if you do not know who he is, I recommend highly you go listen to that podcast. We had a really great time.
Oh yeah.
And because I had never met him before, and he was super cool, and we had a great chat, and he was hitting it hard with Word Detective. He was so confident, and he was like, yeah, I had no idea. And I was like, yes, love that attitude.
He made me believe that he knew exactly what it was, and I'm like, that's it, I'm convinced it's dried salted fish. And again, it was nowhere close, but like just the confidence. And that's what I think it just makes him really good at his job. Like, he is a motivational speaker, and he helps people find jobs and different things like that. And he does a lot of podcasts. He wrote a book, which we have at the library. You can come in and ask us about it, and I'll show you where it is.
Do.
So like, I love that, because it just makes him really good at what he does.
Yeah, so we had a great time. We tend to have a good time on the podcast.
Yeah. Real quick, I want to throw out a few things coming up in the libraries. Summer reading is one of them. If you're listening to this on June 1st, which is usually what we put out, or the first week of June, that's when summer reading starts, is the first week in June. Yeah, had to count in my head.
June 4th. Yeah, they're coming in June 4th.
Yes, I've had a few people pre-registering already, so that's cool. I think people are getting excited. I know a couple of our employees, coworkers, went to the schools to kind of psych everybody out and make sure everybody knew it was coming. So that's happening. We've got a lot of fun programs. Outdoor movie nights are happening, indoor bingo nights. We have, I don't believe it's the zoo, but there's another program where someone's bringing in.
Frogtown Exotics.
Yep, there's bringing in animals for people to see.
I'm so excited I get to be here when he's here because I'm hoping you'll get to touch some animals. Some you won't, but some you will. So it's going to be so fun.
Yes, I love that part. And I never get to be here in the mornings when we have programs, and it makes me sad, unless it's a Friday or something. I usually miss the cool programs. But we're also having the archery trailer at the park. We've been having that every year because people love it. So that is one thing. And then I want to say really quick, I know it's a few months away, but I want to start hyping people up. This September at the Elmore Library, we are having a Fans and Fiction Fest. And we have a couple local authors coming in. We have some virtual Q&As with some celebrities that you might know. We have another author and podcaster coming in, Travis Mcelroy. Him and his family are the ones that wrote the Adventure Zone. They do the Adventure Zone podcast. If you haven't listened to that, you should go do that.
Yes, we actually have a couple other books here at Genoa. So
yeah,
if you need to figure out who they are, learn a little bit more about them, listen to the podcast, come check out the books.
Yes. We're also going to have a couple of food trucks here. We have a caricature artist, a bunch of art vendors that are doing art prints and pins, someone who's doing they got really cool fabric for different fandoms and stuff, and they're making bow ties and scrunchies. She's a friend of mine. That's why I'm hyping her up. I'm excited. She also makes quilts. She does Harry Potter quilts and different fandoms and stuff like that.
Oh man.
Yeah. We also have Black Swamp Ghostbusters is coming out. So we're going to have the Ghostbusters car on location you can take pictures with. We're going to have a big book sale, pin trading, kids crafts, a live lightsaber duel.
Oh yeah, giveaways. I don't
Tons of
remember
giveaways, raffles, and a cosplay contest.
Yes.
And all of that information is on our website. There's also a Fans and Fiction Fest Facebook page that you can go to and look at. If you can't find it, there's also an event page under the library's Facebook page. You can go to our events and find it on there and look at that more. Definitely go to our website and check out the page we have for that, because you can see everybody that's coming and all the events that we just talked about, everything we listed. That's all.
Yeah, and if you're a vendor too, we still have openings, so
we
go ahead.
Yeah, we're looking for anybody that sells anime stuff or does anime programs or anything that would like to set up a table. That would be awesome. Or if you know someone, please leave a comment, because we're still looking for vendors. So if you know someone that's interested, send them the link or send us their email and we can contact them.
Yeah, reach out.
Because please do, and get excited. It's gonna be awesome sauce.
Yeah, honestly, it sounds pretty freaking cool. So come, just even if you're only here for an hour, come take a peruse, look around.
Right. And even though that I'll be doing different stuff and hosting a panel and doing different work here as an employee, I'm still excited to dress up. That is one of my favorite things when I go to Comic-Con. I love dressing up.
That's the one part I think is going to be cool, is seeing what people come as, because I do know some people get super, super, super crazy.
Right? I know. I wish I had the money to put into really cool costumes, and I don't. I end up just buying a lot of the clothes I can find and makeshift things over top of it, or cut them up and do what I need to make them work. And some people are just amazing working with the foam or fabric or however they do their costumes, and dude, amazing.
Yeah.
So start thinking about that now. Start making your costumes and enter that contest.
Honestly, and there's so many videos. If you don't know what to do, people show all the time how they make things, and then they look so cool. So I'd so highly recommend, if you want to make something, you could start there too.
Yep.
You don't have to start from scratch.
No, but you could. That's why we wanted to get this out there. This is coming out in June, and the event's not till September. But if you need the time to get that together, then you have time now.
Yes.
So
get after it.
Yeah, start telling your friends this is happening. Registration isn't up yet for when this podcast comes out. We don't have registration up yet for the cosplay contest. We're still working on that, but it'll be up probably in June. I'm gonna work on that. So yes.
Yeah. So there's like so much going on. So yes, keep your eyes peeled. You have questions, let us know. But yeah, this was hopefully you guys think it was a fun podcast. It was a long podcast.
Jam packed, and yes, very long.
So much stuff. I agree.
And I feel so much better, honestly. Like I was just so tired when I came into work. It's raining outside. I was just like not having a very good day. So this was fun, and it kind of got me in a better headspace. So thank you.
I know. That's why. Yay. I always like doing it like when I first come in, because normally we record these on a Monday. So it's always like, oh, I first come in and we do this, and you get hyped for the day. But we're a little out of order this time.
Doing this like late in the day. We're recording so late. It's almost 6 o'clock. I haven't had dinner. Like we were going to start recording at 4, and I just didn't want to anymore. Like I knew it was going to be late, and I was just already so tired and having a bad day that I'm like, how am I going to get through this and like be happy and excited for stuff? But honestly, just like it's fun talking to someone you love hanging out with and talking about a subject that you love and can really get into, and just being a little nitpicky and tearing it apart and just analyzing all the little features. That's fun.
Yeah,
it's
I
like
agree.
when you would never want to go to a movie with me after, it's based off of a book, because I'll nitpick the whole thing apart. But I think that's fun, and I want to sit with someone who wants to nitpick it with me.
Yes.
Like I like seeing the differences and the similarities. So I'm not being cruel necessarily to the movie. I like finding the differences. And I'm sad because I missed that podcast where you and Jen
the movies. Yeah.
Was the movie better than the book? I was sick. I was in the hospital, and I totally missed that episode. And I didn't get to record. I thought about it. I'm like, I'll just bring my laptop to the. No, you would have hated it. I looked disgusting.
Yeah, don't do that. Rest up instead. Not worth it. Instead, you can watch it, and then you let Jen and I know of your comments.
Yes. So I'm glad you guys got to do it, because I know Jen also loves that subject. It's one of my favorite subjects. So we could probably do another one sometime in like a year from now.
There's so many. Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So as long as we don't do the same ones you guys talked about, there's so many out there. And I bet you didn't even do some of the ones that I would probably do. So yeah,
I'd have to look at the list that I have from when we did it, because I don't remember all of them. And some we barely hit on, where it was like you only had one comment versus others you had like 20.
Yeah. So
in the future, keep your eyes peeled.
There's another potential, podcast idea. So we don't really run out of ideas. We kind of sit down and we have like a sheet we work off of. So yeah,
absolutely.
We will have to start wrapping it up though. Like I said, it is almost 6 o'clock. So I got work out in the library to do. I think someone else is just sitting up there by the desk. I haven't seen, I'll be honest, a single patron come in. It's very possible that there aren't any in here right now.
We've had quite a few so far, so I'm like, oh no.
I mean, it is raining. I can hear it hitting the roof. It is really
stopped for us now, so I'm sure it means it's on its way.
Yeah, it's probably coming.
Well, that's good though. The May showers, have all the flowers, and then it'll be summer, and then it'll be hot.
I don't have to water my garden tonight. The rain's doing it.
That's right.
I really hope it's not raining. Oh, I want to get ice cream when I got off work. It's Thursday, and if you live in Elmore, the ice cream shop here does specials on Thursdays, and tonight's a Buckeye Sunday.
Oh, yummy.
Oh my God, I want it so bad. So hopefully it's not raining when I get off, because I might still stop and get one.
Heck yeah, I would. But, treat yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Is that from Parks and Rec?
Yeah. I mean, I always like saying it before, but now I have to say it with a little more attitude, because that's how they say it in this show.
I love that show.
All right. Well, on that note.
Yeah, we could continue like this for hours. We could do a podcast where it's just us talking about nothing and everything.
Literally that. We're good at that.
Yep. I listened to podcast episodes about that where they're like, we don't have a subject, we're just going to talk. And I
see where it leads us.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty fun. I like that.
We could do that. Cool. That's a good idea. I'll put that in the
Yeah.
notes.
And the docs. The
Yeah.
docs.
Yep. But yes, we
All
really
right,
do
well,
need to go. We have work to do.
yes.
This was fun.
Yeah. It was. It was a good time.
So,
Well, thank you all for listening and watching and joining Sierra and I in another Harris-Elmore and Genoa Libraries podcast.
bye-bye.
Bye.